Billionaire saw his ex with his son stepping off his private jet and froze in shock. Laura's phone buzzed at 4:47 a.m. Not the alarm, a text from dispatch. She was already awake anyway, sitting on the edge of her bed in the dark, listening to Lucas breathe through the baby monitor. He'd been coughing since Tuesday, nothing serious. Just the Bay Area fog settling into every kid's lungs this time of year. She'd give it another day before taking him in. The text was short. Emergency pediatric transport. SFO private terminal. Patient critical. Need you on site in 90 minutes. Laura stared at the screen. 90 minutes. She had a 2-year-old asleep in the next room. She called dispatch immediately. This is Laura Gunning. I just got the alert. I have my son with me. We know. The dispatcher sounded stressed, frantic even. Listen, we've been trying to reach you for 20 minutes. We called 3 other nurses. Nobody's available. The patient's coding. We need you now. I can't just bring my 2-year-old on a... The family approved it. They're desperate. Sign a waiver. Bring a caregiver if you have one. We'll square it with legal later. But if you can't do it, I need to know now so I can keep calling. Laura closed her eyes. This was insane, completely against protocol, but a 6-year-old was dying. I'll be there in 90 minutes. Thank you. Text when you're 10 minutes out. The line went dead. Laura sat there for another 5 seconds, phone in her hand, trying to process what she'd just agreed to. Then she moved. She texted Carla. Emergency. Need you to come with me and Lucas. Medical transport. I'll explain on the way. Carla's response came in 10 seconds. On my way. The shower was cold for the first 30 seconds like it always was. The building was old, one of those Victorian conversions in the outer sunset that looked charming in photos but had pipes from 1987 and a landlord who responded to maintenance requests approximately never. She kept her hair dry, twisted it into a knot that would hold for 12 hours if it had to. Lucas was still asleep when she lifted him out of his crib. 2 years old, 30 pounds of dead weight. He made a noise, half whine, half sigh, and buried his face in her neck. He smelled like the lavender detergent she bought in bulk from Costco and something else. Just him. That specific kid smell that didn't have a name. "We're going on an adventure," she whispered. He didn't answer. Already back under. Carla arrived 7 minutes later, breathless, wearing mismatched shoes and a jacket over her pajamas. What happened? Critical pediatric transport, 6-year-old. They need me at SFO in 1 hour and 20 minutes. And Lucas? They said I could bring him. Family approved. I have to sign a waiver. Carla's eyebrows went up. That's not normal. I know, but they're desperate. 3 other nurses weren't available. Okay. Carla grabbed the diaper bag Laura had already packed. Let's go. The Uber driver didn't talk, which was perfect. Laura sat in the back with Lucas asleep on her lap, watching the city wake up through the window, streetlights still on, joggers in the panhandle, a guy sleeping against a storefront on Divisadero, his shopping cart tipped on its side. San Francisco in the early morning always felt like 2 cities, the one people posted about on Instagram, and the one that actually existed. Her phone buzzed again. Another text from the hospital coordinator. Patient is 6YO male, respiratory distress. Family requested air transport to Primary Children's in SLC. Jet departs 0700, Salt Lake City. Laura's stomach did something she didn't want to examine. She hadn't been to Utah in 3 years. Not since... She shut the thought down, focused on the details that mattered. 6-year-old. Respiratory distress. That could mean anything from severe asthma to pneumonia to something worse. She opened her notes app, started running through the checklist she'd memorized years ago. Oxygen protocols. Intubation kit. Sedation parameters for pediatric patients mid-flight. By the time the driver pulled up to the private terminal at SFO, she'd switched into the version of herself that didn't think about Utah, or what happened there, or who she'd left behind. Just the job. The terminal was small, nothing like the main airport. Just a low building with tinted windows and a parking lot that had maybe 12 cars in it. Laura grabbed her bag, helped Carla with Lucas, tipped the driver through the app, and pushed through the glass doors. Inside, it was all recessed lighting and minimalist furniture that nobody ever sat in. A woman behind the desk looked up. "Laura Gunning. That's me. They're waiting for you on the tarmac. Through that door, turn left." Laura didn't ask questions. She followed the signs, pushed through another door, and stepped out onto the asphalt with Carla and Lucas right behind her. The air hit her first. Jet fuel and salt from the bay. That specific smell that meant planes and movement and leaving. She spotted the aircraft immediately. Small, white, sleek in that way that meant someone had paid extra for it to look exactly like every other private jet. A man in a flight suit stood near the stairs, talking into a radio. He saw her, nodded, gestured her over. "You're the nurse?" "Yeah, this is Carla, my emergency contact. And my son, Lucas. Dispatch said the family approved." They did, signed off on everything. He handed her a tablet with a liability waiver already pulled up. "Basically says the kid's here at your own risk, not our insurance. Standard CYA. Laura skimmed it. Dense legal language, acknowledgement of irregular circumstances, release of liability. She signed with her finger. "Patient's already on board with the parents. We're wheels up in 15. Laura climbed the stairs, felt the metal shift slightly under her weight. Carla followed with Lucas, who was finally starting to wake up. The interior was exactly what she expected. Leather seats, wood trim, everything designed to make rich people feel like they weren't in an aluminum tube at 40 duos-earned feet. A woman sat in the back, her face pale, holding the hand of a small boy lying across 2 seats. The kid's breathing was audible even from the door, sharp, shallow, wrong. Laura moved fast, dropped her bag, knelt next to the boy. "I'm Laura. I'm going to take care of him, okay?" The mother nodded, eyes wet. Laura got to work. She didn't notice Lucas until halfway through the flight. The boy, Ethan, she'd learned his name was Ethan, had stabilized 20 minutes after takeoff. Oxygen saturation back to 94%. Breathing easier. Still critical, but no longer circling the drain. Laura had stayed next to him anyway, monitoring vitals, adjusting the nasal cannula, keeping one hand on his small wrist to feel his pulse, because machines were great but nothing beat human touch for catching the things numbers missed. The parents had finally dozed off. Ethan was asleep. Laura let herself exhale. That's when she heard it. A kid's voice. Young, familiar. "Mama?" She turned. Lucas was 3 rows up, standing on a seat, looking at her over the headrest. His hair was sticking up on one side. He had his blanket, the grey one with the hole in the corner that he refused to let her throw away. Laura's brain stopped. Carla appeared behind him, looking tired but calm. "He just woke up, asking for you." Laura moved up the aisle, scooped Lucas into her arms. He wrapped himself around her like a koala. "Where are we?" "On an airplane, baby." "Why?" "Mama had to help a sick kid." "Oh." He processed this. "Can I have juice?" Carla handed him a juice box she'd somehow procured. Lucas settled into Laura's lap, completely unbothered by the fact that they were at 40,000 feet. Laura held him and tried not to think about the fact that they were landing in 90 minutes in a city she'd sworn she'd never go back to. The descent into Salt Lake City was smooth, too smooth. Laura hated it. She kept herself busy with Ethan, rechecking his vitals, making notes for the ground team that would meet them. The mother thanked her 4 times. Laura smiled, said it was her job, didn't mention that her entire nervous system was screaming at her to get off this plane and run. The wheels touched down, taxied, stopped. The flight attendant, young guy, maybe 25, with the kind of eager smile that made Laura tired, opened the cabin door. Warm air rushed in. Dry. Different from San Francisco. Laura gathered her things. Lucas was awake now, fully alert, asking 1,000 questions about why the ground was moving and where they were and could he see the pilots. "In a minute," Laura said. She picked him up, settled him on her hip. He was getting too big for this. In 6 months she wouldn't be able to carry him anymore. Carla grabbed the bags. "I'll get these. You just—" "Yeah, thanks." Laura moved toward the door. The stairs had been rolled up. She could see the tarmac below, a few vehicles parked nearby, someone in a suit standing next to a black SUV. She stepped out into the sunlight. The air was thinner here, a mile above sea level. Her body remembered it even if her brain tried not to. Lucas pointed. "Look, Mama, that man is staring at us." Laura looked, felt her entire body go cold. Josh Franklin stood 15 feet away, next to a man in an operations vest who was holding a tablet and clearly waiting for instructions that weren't coming. Josh wasn't moving, wasn't blinking, just standing there like someone had paused him mid-frame. His eyes went from her face to Lucas, back to her face, back to Lucas. Laura watched him do the math, watched him realize, watched something crack behind the mask he always wore. She'd forgotten how tall he was, how his presence took up space even when he was standing still. Dark hair going grey at the temples, sharp jaw, the same eyes that used to look at her like she was a problem he wanted to solve. He looked older, tired, exactly the same. Lucas shifted on her hip. "Mama, who's that?" Laura's mouth was dry. She couldn't remember the last time she'd been this aware of her own heartbeat. Josh still hadn't moved. The guy with the tablet glanced between them, clearly confused. Someone behind her, probably the pilot, said something about ground transport. Laura took the stairs slowly, one at a time, Lucas holding onto her neck. When she reached the bottom, she was 5 feet from Josh. He opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. Nothing came out. The operations guy stepped forward. "Mr. Franklin, give us a minute." Josh's voice was rough, like he hadn't used it in a while. The guy hesitated, then walked away. Laura shifted Lucas higher on her hip. Her son's weight was the only thing keeping her grounded right now. "Hi," she said, stupidest thing she could have said. But her brain wasn't working. Josh looked at Lucas. Really looked. His eyes caught on the dark hair, the brown eyes, the shape of his face that was unmistakably. "How old is he?" 2. Josh didn't say anything. He didn't have to. Lucas, completely oblivious to the fact that the world had just tilted sideways, reached out toward Josh. "Airplane," he said, pointing back at the jet. "Yeah, buddy," Laura murmured. "That's an airplane." Josh's jaw worked. She watched the muscle there flex, release. He was trying to say something and couldn't. Finally, "You were on my plane." "I didn't know it was yours." "You didn't—" He stopped, ran a hand through his hair. The gesture was so familiar it hurt. "They told me it was a medical transport. Emergency authorization. I didn't—" He looked at her again. "You didn't know?" "No." Silence. Lucas squirmed. Laura set him down, kept hold of his hand. He immediately tried to walk toward the plane, pulling at her. "In a minute," she said. Josh crouched, got down to Lucas's level. Laura's breath caught. "Hey," Josh said quietly. Lucas studied him, 2 years old, zero sense of strangers. "Hi. You like airplanes?" "Yeah, me too." Lucas grinned, then got distracted by something on the ground, a beetle or a rock or who knows what, and dropped into a squat to investigate. Josh stood back up, looked at Laura. "We need to talk." "Yeah, not here." "I know." He glanced at the operations guy, who was standing a respectful distance away, but clearly trying to figure out what the hell was happening. Josh pulled out his phone, typed something, put it away. "I'm having someone take you to the hospital for your patient." "Okay." After that, he stopped. "Where are you staying?" "I don't know yet. I didn't exactly plan this." Something flickered across his face. "I'll have someone arrange something. Josh, please." She'd never heard him say please, not like that. Laura looked down at Lucas, who'd found a pebble and was now completely fascinated by it. Her son. Her life. The thing she'd built in Josh's absence because she'd known that this moment would come eventually, and it would be exactly this complicated. "Okay," she said. Josh nodded, started to turn away, stopped. His name? Lucas. She watched him repeat it silently, watched it land. Then he walked away, already pulling out his phone again, back in control. Laura picked Lucas up. He protested, wanted the pebble. "We gotta go, baby." "But I know, we'll find another one." Carla appeared with the bags, gave Laura a look that said, "We're gonna talk about this later." An SUV pulled up. Professional driver. Laura got in, buckled Lucas into the car seat that someone had already installed. Of course, Josh had thought of that. and sat back. The door closed. She could still see Josh on the tarmac, talking to two different people now, his back to her. Lucas kicked his feet against the seat. "Mama, where are we going?" "Hospital first, then I don't know." "Can we get chicken nuggets?" "Yeah, baby, we can get chicken nuggets." The car started moving. Laura closed her eyes. She'd spent 2 years not thinking about Josh Franklin. 2 years building a life that didn't include him. 2 years knowing this day might come and hoping it wouldn't. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Room reserved at the Grand America downtown. Send me the hospital address when you're done. We'll talk tonight." Laura stared at it. Lucas was singing something to himself now. Some song from a TV show she'd let him watch too much of. Outside, the mountains rose against a sky so blue it hurt to look at. She didn't text back. The phone buzzed again. "Please." Laura typed, "Fine." Then put the phone face down in her lap and watched the city she'd left behind 3 years ago slide past the window. Lucas had fallen asleep. She hadn't realized she'd been holding her breath until she heard herself exhale. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic, and that specific kind of anxiety that lived in pediatric units, quiet, heavy, the kind parents carried in their shoulders. Laura stood next to Ethan's bed, reviewing his chart with the attending physician, a woman in her 50s with reading glasses on a chain and the efficient demeanor of someone who'd seen everything twice. "Oxygen sats are holding at 96, Laura said. "Respiratory rate dropped from 38 to 22 during transport. I kept him on 2 liters the whole flight." The doctor nodded, made a note. "You did good work, we'll take it from here." Ethan's mother grabbed Laura's hand as she turned to leave. Her grip was tight, desperate. "Thank you. I don't know what we would have—" "He's in the right place now," Laura said. She squeezed back, then gently pulled away. She'd learned a long time ago not to hold on too long. It made leaving harder for everyone. Lucas was in the hallway with Carla, sitting on the floor with a juice box and a pack of crackers. Someone from the nursing station had scrounged up. He looked up when Laura appeared. "All done?" "Yeah, baby. All done." Carla stood, joints creaking audibly. "So, we're going to talk about what happened back there?" Laura glanced around. 2 nurses at the station, both pretending not to listen. A doctor walking past with a tablet. Too public. "Not here." "Laura, I know. Just not here." Carla studied her face for a long moment, then sighed. "Fine. But we're talking." "I know." They took an Uber to the hotel because Laura couldn't process calling Josh for a ride, and she definitely couldn't process whatever driver he would have sent. The Grand America was the kind of place that had a circular driveway and valets in actual uniforms and a lobby that echoed when you walked across it. Lucas's eyes went wide. "Mama, is this where we're staying?" "Yeah. It's fancy. I know." The check-in process was smooth. Too smooth. The woman at the desk already had Laura's information pulled up, room key ready, and that particular smile that meant someone had called ahead and said, "Make this effortless." Room 847. 2 queens, city view, probably cost more per night than Laura's rent. Carla whistled when they walked in. "Okay, so he's still got money." "He always had money. And he's what, just putting you up here? Out of the goodness of his heart?" Laura set her bag down on the luggage rack. Lucas immediately claimed the bed closest to the window and started jumping on it. She should stop him. She didn't. "He wants to talk." "I bet he does." "Carla, that boy out there on the tarmac, that's his kid." "Yes. And he didn't know." "No. Because you never told him." Laura sat down on the other bed. The mattress was firm, expensive. Everything in this room was expensive. "It's more complicated than that." "It always is." Carla sat next to her. "You gonna tell me why?" Laura watched Lucas jump. He was laughing. That pure, unself-conscious sound that 2-year-olds made when they were happy. His hair bounced with each landing. His whole body committed to the joy of it. "Because he would have tried to fix it," Laura said quietly. "That's what Josh does. He sees a problem and he fixes it. And I didn't want to be a problem. Having a baby isn't a problem. It is when the father is a billionaire who runs his life like a spreadsheet and you're a nurse who met him at the worst possible time in both your lives." Carla didn't say anything for a minute, just sat there, hands folded in her lap. You love him? I don't know, maybe 3 years ago, before I knew better. And now? Laura looked at her. Now I have Lucas, and that's enough. Lucas lost his balance mid-jump, fell onto his butt, and started laughing harder. Carla smiled, despite herself. You're going to have to talk to him eventually. I know, tonight. Want me to stay with Lucas? Would you? Course. Carla stood, knees popping again. But Laura, whatever happens tonight, don't let him make you feel like you did something wrong. You did what you had to do. Laura nodded, didn't trust her voice enough to answer. Josh texted at 6:30. Malone's on 200 South, 7 o'clock. Not a question, an instruction. Laura almost said no just on principle, then looked at Lucas, who was watching some cartoon on the hotel TV with Carla, and realized there was no avoiding this. Might as well get it over with. She changed into clean jeans and a sweater that didn't have spit-up stains on the shoulder, put on mascara, not because she cared what Josh thought, just because she needed the ritual of it, the normalcy. Carla gave her a look when she came out of the bathroom. You look good. I look tired. That too. Laura kissed Lucas goodbye. He barely noticed, too absorbed in whatever anthropomorphic animals were singing on screen. She took the elevator down alone, walked through the lobby where everything was marble and recessed lighting, and stepped out into the early evening air. Salt Lake City in October felt different than San Francisco. Crisper. The mountains rising to the east caught the last of the sunlight and turned it into something almost violent. Laura pulled her jacket tighter and started walking. Malone's was 3 blocks away. A bar that looked like it had been there since the 70s and refused to acknowledge that anything had changed since. Dark wood, dim lighting, booths with cracked leather seats. A few people at the bar, mostly men, watching a baseball game on the TV mounted in the corner. Josh sat in the back booth. He saw her before she saw him. Always did that. Noticed everything. He stood when she approached. Old habit. Laura hated that she noticed. You want something to drink? He asked. Water's fine. He gestured to the waitress, who appeared with the kind of efficiency that suggested she'd been told to pay attention to this table. Water for her, another bourbon for me. Laura slid into the booth across from him. The seat was cold through her jeans. They didn't say anything until the drinks arrived. Laura watched Josh take a sip of his bourbon, watched his hand grip the glass, watched the way his jaw worked before he set it down. So, he said finally. So, 2 years old. Yeah. Which means, he stopped. Did the math again, even though he'd clearly done it 100 times already. Which means he was conceived right before you left. Yes. And you didn't tell me. No. His hand tightened on the glass. Why? Laura took a breath. This was the part she'd rehearsed in her head 1,000 times, and it still didn't feel right. Because I knew what you'd do. What I'd... He stared at her. What would I do, Laura? Take care of my kid? Be a father? Is that so terrible? You would have tried to control it. Control me. Turn it into some kind of project. A problem you could solve with the right amount of money and planning. That's not fair. Isn't it? She leaned forward. Josh, I knew you for 6 months. 6 intense, complicated, honestly kind of messed up months. We weren't in love. We were 2 people who were both dealing with shit and found each other at exactly the wrong time. That doesn't mean you were grieving your father. I was trying to figure out if nursing was even the right career after that disaster with my last patient. We hooked up because it felt good to not think for a while. That's it. That's all it was. Josh's face did something she couldn't read. That's all it was. Yeah. So when you found out you were pregnant, I made a choice. My choice. To have the baby and raise him myself, without telling me. Without complicating it, he laughed, short, bitter. Complicating it. Jesus, Laura. You had my kid and you think telling me would have complicated it? Yes. She didn't flinch. Because you would have wanted involvement, and involvement means compromise. And compromise means I don't get to make decisions about my son without running them past someone who thinks the world operates on logic and data. And you think it doesn't? I think kids don't. The waitress appeared, refilled Laura's water, even though she'd barely touched it, and vanished again. Josh ran a hand through his hair. That gesture again. The one that meant he was trying to process something his brain wouldn't accept. So what now? I don't know. You don't know. No. I came here for a job, a medical transport. I didn't know it was your plane. I didn't know you'd be on the tarmac. I didn't plan any of this. But now I know. Yeah, now you know. He looked at her. Really looked. The way he used to when they were lying in bed at 3 a.m. and neither of them could sleep. And he'd just stare at her like she was something he was trying to figure out. I want to know him. Laura's stomach dropped. Josh, I'm not asking to take him. I'm not asking to change your life. I'm just asking to know my son. It's not that simple. Why not? Because you don't just get to show up and be a dad. That's not how it works. Then tell me how it works. She wanted to yell at him, wanted to tell him that he'd had 2 years to be a dad and he'd missed all of it, and that wasn't her fault. But looking at his face, the way his hand shook slightly when he picked up his glass again, she realized he wasn't angry. He was terrified. You ease in, she said finally. Slowly, on my terms. Okay. I'm serious, Josh. This isn't negotiable. Lucas doesn't know who you are. He doesn't need some stranger walking in and disrupting everything. I'm not a stranger. I'm his father. Biologically, but he doesn't know that. And right now I'm not sure I'm ready to tell him. Josh's jaw tightened. So what do you want me to do? Just wait? Yes. For how long? I don't know. As long as it takes for me to feel like this isn't going to blow up his entire world. Silence. The TV in the corner cut to commercials. Someone at the bar laughed too loud. Josh finished his bourbon, set the glass down carefully, precisely. I have meetings here through Friday. After that, I'm back in San Francisco for 2 weeks. Okay. Are you staying in Salt Lake? I don't know yet. Depends on work. If you go back to San Francisco, I'll think about it. He looked like he wanted to argue, wanted to push, but something stopped him. Maybe he'd finally learned that Laura didn't bend when pushed. She broke or she walked away. Okay, he said quietly. Laura stood. Her legs felt unsteady. I should get back. Lucas will want me to put him to bed. Josh stood too. Can I? He stopped, started again. Can I see him? Not tonight, just sometime, before you leave. Every instinct she had screamed no. But looking at Josh's face, at the man who'd somehow become a father without knowing it, she couldn't. Maybe I'll text you. Okay. She turned to leave. Laura. She stopped, didn't turn around. I'm sorry for whatever I did or didn't do that made you think you had to do this alone. She didn't know how to respond to that, so she didn't. Just walked out of the bar into the night that had gone cold while they were inside. The walk back to the hotel took longer than it should have. Laura kept stopping at intersections, even when the light was green, her body refusing to move forward. By the time she got back to the room, Lucas was asleep in one of the beds, Carla dozing in the chair by the window with the TV on mute. Laura stood in the doorway for a long time, just watching her son breathe. Finally, she closed the door. The lock clicked into place. Laura didn't sleep. She tried. Lay there in the dark, listening to Lucas breathe, and Carla snore softly in the other bed, staring at the ceiling where the ambient light from the street outside made patterns she couldn't stop tracking. At 3 a.m. she gave up, grabbed her phone, and went into the bathroom, closed the door, sat on the edge of the tub with the light off because turning it on felt like admitting defeat. She had 17 unread emails. Most were automated, shift confirmations, protocol updates, the kind of administrative noise that filled her inbox daily. One was from her supervisor, asking for a debrief on the Ethan transport. One was from her landlord, reminding her that rent was due on the 1st. Nothing from Josh. She didn't know why she'd expected something. A text, a follow-up, some indication that their conversation had affected him the way it had gutted her. But that was Josh. He processed things internally, ran them through whatever algorithm he used to make sense of the world, and came out the other side with a plan. Emotions were variables. People were data points. She'd forgotten that, or maybe she'd just hoped he'd changed. Laura opened her messages, scrolled back 3 years to the last text she'd sent him. "I need some space. Please don't contact me for a while." He'd responded, "Okay, that was it. One word. No fight, no questions. Just acceptance that she was walking away and he was going to let her." At the time, she'd been relieved. Now it felt like proof that she'd been right all along. Josh didn't fight for things that weren't worth the effort. She closed the messages, opened her photos instead, scrolled through 2 years of Lucas. First smile. First steps. First time he'd said mama clearly enough that she'd burst into tears in the middle of a Safeway. Birthday parties at Carla's apartment. Halloween costume she'd made from a cardboard box and silver paint. Christmas morning, Lucas's face when he saw the presents. The pure, unfiltered joy of a kid who didn't know yet that the world was complicated. None of these moments had Josh in them. By design, by choice. Laura's choice. She'd told herself it was the right one, that Lucas was better off with one parent who was all in than 2 parents who were together out of obligation. That kids needed stability, not drama. But sitting here at 3 in the morning in a bathroom in Salt Lake City, she wasn't so sure anymore. Her phone buzzed. A text. From Josh. "Can't sleep either." Laura stared at it. Typed, "How did you know I was awake? Saw your light on. I'm in the lobby." She looked up at the bathroom door like he could somehow see through 8 floors and 2 walls. "What are you doing in the lobby at 3 a.m.? Same thing you're doing in your bathroom, not sleeping." Despite everything, she almost smiled. "Go home, Josh." "Can't. Don't have one here. Just a hotel room that's too quiet." Laura hesitated, fingers hovering over the keyboard. "Where are you staying?" "Same hotel. Different floor." Of course he was. "Josh, I'm not asking you to come down. Just felt less alone, knowing you're awake too." She didn't respond. Just sat there holding her phone, feeling the weight of those words settle somewhere in her chest. 3 minutes passed. Then, "Good night, Laura," she typed back. "Good night." Then sat in the dark for another 20 minutes before finally going back to bed. Morning came too fast. Lucas woke up at 6:30 like he always did, ready to destroy the world with enthusiasm. Carla ordered room service, pancakes for Lucas, coffee for the adults, orange juice that cost $12 a glass because hotel pricing was insane. "So what's the plan?" Carla asked, cutting Lucas's pancakes into pieces he could handle. "I don't know. Wait to hear from work, I guess. See if they need me for a return flight." "And Josh? What about him?" Carla gave her a look. "You gonna let him see Lucas?" "I said I'd think about it." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer I have right now." Lucas shoved a massive bite of pancake into his mouth, syrup on his chin, completely oblivious to the adult tension happening around him. Laura reached over, wiped his face with a napkin. He squirmed away. "I can do it." "I know you can, baby." Her phone rang. Unknown number, 801 area code, she answered. "Laura Gunning?" "Yes?" "This is Rebecca from Med Air Transport. We have a situation. The family you transported yesterday, Ethan Chambers. His condition deteriorated overnight. They need to move him to Denver Children's. Better pick you. We need you on the flight. Leaves in 3 hours. Laura's stomach sank. "Is he stable enough for transport?" "Barely. That's why we need you. You know his case." "Okay, I'll be there." She hung up, looked at Carla. "You gotta go," Carla said. Not a question. "Yeah." "How long?" "At least a day, maybe 2. Denver's not close." "I can stay with Lucas." "Carla?" "Don't. You know I can. You also know you don't have a choice." Laura looked at her son. He'd finished his pancakes and was now trying to build a tower out of the little syrup containers. She should stop him. Probably. "Lucas, baby. Mama has to go help another kid who's sick." He didn't look up. "Okay. You're going to stay here with Miss Carla. Is that okay?" "Can we go swimming?" Carla smiled. "This hotel's got a pool?" "I think so." "Then yeah, buddy, we can go swimming." Lucas grinned. Crisis averted. At least for him. Laura grabbed her bag, started repacking the few things she'd taken out. Scrubs. Toiletries. the book she'd brought and hadn't opened. Her hands moved on autopilot, while her brain tried to process the fact that she was leaving Lucas again, in a city she didn't live in, with Josh somewhere in the building. She should text him, tell him she was leaving, make sure he knew not to just show up. Instead, she kissed Lucas goodbye, hugged Carla, and left before she could overthink it. The Uber to the airport took 40 minutes. Traffic on I-15 was worse than the 101 somehow, everyone aggressive and fast, and acting like turn signals were optional. Laura sat in the back, checking and rechecking her kit, making sure she had everything she'd need for a critical transport. Her phone buzzed. Josh. Carla texted me, said you had to fly out. Laura closed her eyes. Of course Carla had Josh's number. Of course she'd texted him. Yes, how long? Don't know, day or two. Lucas is staying here? Yes. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Can I see him? Laura's thumb hovered over the screen. This was it, the moment where she either kept the walls up or started taking them down. She thought about Josh in the lobby at 3 a.m., about the way his hands had shaken in the bar, about the fact that he'd said please. He'll be at the hotel pool this afternoon. Around 2, Carla will be with him. The response came immediately. Thank you. Laura didn't respond, just put her phone away and watched Salt Lake City slide past the window. The flight to Denver was worse than the one to Salt Lake. Ethan's oxygen sats kept dropping. His breathing was labored, wet, the kind of sound that meant fluid in the lungs and time running out. Laura stayed next to him the entire flight, one hand on his wrist, the other adjusting the oxygen flow, talking to him even though he was sedated, because sometimes kids could hear, and sometimes hearing a calm voice was the difference between panic and peace. His parents sat 2 rows back, silent. The mother's face was grey. The father kept his hand on her knee, knuckles white. When they landed, the ground team was waiting. Laura handed off her notes, watched them wheel Ethan away, and stood there on the tarmac feeling hollowed out. A paramedic she'd worked with before, Trevor, mid-40s, tattoo sleeve, always had gum, walked over. You good? Yeah. You don't look good. I'm fine. He studied her face. When's the last time you ate? Laura tried to remember. Breakfast, the pancakes hours ago. I'm fine, she said again. Right. Come on. There's a diner near the hospital. You're buying me coffee and you're eating something that isn't hospital vending machine garbage. She didn't have the energy to argue. The diner was called Sam's and looked like every other diner in America. Red vinyl booths, laminate tables, a waitress who'd worked there since before Laura was born. Trevor ordered coffee and pie. Laura ordered coffee and eggs she wasn't sure she could eat. So, Trevor said, you want to talk about whatever's got you looking like you haven't slept in a week? Not really. Cool, I'll talk then. He took a bite of pie. My ex showed up last month, out of nowhere. Wants to reconnect with our daughter. Kid's 15. Hasn't seen him since she was 8. Laura looked up. What did you do? Told him to go to hell. Trevor shrugged. Then my daughter found out and told me to go to hell. Said she had a right to know her father, even if he's a piece of shit. Is he? Yeah, but that's not the point. Point is, I thought I was protecting her. Turns out I was just making choices for her that weren't mine to make. Laura's eggs arrived. She picked up her fork, put it down. That's different. Is it? Yeah, because you had 7 years of that guy being a father before he bailed. I have 0 years of Josh being anything to Lucas. Trevor raised an eyebrow. Josh, huh? Laura wanted to take it back. Couldn't. It's complicated. It always is. He finished his pie. But here's the thing, complicated doesn't mean wrong. It just means you gotta figure it out as you go, and maybe, you gotta let the other person figure it out too. Laura ate a bite of eggs. They were better than she expected. You think I'm being unfair. I think you're being scared, which is normal. But unfair. He tilted his head. Yeah, maybe a little. Laura stayed in Denver overnight. The hospital put her up in a room near the PICU. Not as nice as the Grand America, but functional. Single bed, bathroom that smelled like bleach, a view of the parking lot. She checked her phone at midnight. Nothing from work, nothing from Josh. 3 messages from Carla. Pool was great. Lucas loved it. Your boy showed up. Played with Lucas for an hour. Didn't push, didn't make it weird. He's got his father's eyes, just FYI. Laura stared at that last message for a long time. Then she opened her photos, found the one picture she had of Josh, taken 3 years ago on her phone without him noticing. He'd been looking out a window, morning light catching his profile, and she'd thought he looked sad. Beautiful, but sad. She'd never deleted it. Couldn't now either. Instead, she turned off her phone and lay in the dark, listening to the hum of the hospital that never stopped, never slowed, just kept going, because that's what hospitals did. Her flight back to Salt Lake was scheduled for 10 a.m. She'd deal with everything else after that. The air conditioning kicked on. Somewhere down the hall, a monitor beeped. Laura closed her eyes. The flight back to Salt Lake hit turbulence over the Rockies. Not bad, just enough to make the plane shudder and the flight attendant's smile go tight. Laura kept her eyes closed, hands gripped on the armrests, breathing through her nose the way she'd learned to do when panic crept up. She hated flying as a passenger, always had. When she was working, monitoring a patient, adjusting equipment, focused on keeping someone alive, she could ignore it. But sitting here with nothing to do except think, every bump felt personal. Her phone buzzed the second they touched down. Carla. We're at the Natural History Museum. Lucas saw a dinosaur and lost his mind. Where should we meet you? Laura typed back. I'll come to you. Give me an hour. She grabbed her bag from overhead, filed off the plane with everyone else, and stood in the terminal trying to remember which rideshare app worked better in Salt Lake. Her phone was at 32%. She'd forgotten to charge it in Denver. Outside, the afternoon sun was aggressive, made everything look overexposed, washed out. Laura squinted, found her car, and gave the driver the museum address. Traffic wasn't bad. They cut through downtown, past Temple Square where tourists walked around in groups, past construction that seemed to be everywhere, past the library that looked like it was trying too hard to be interesting. The driver had talk radio on. Something about water rights and the lake drying up and political fights Laura didn't have the bandwidth to follow. She leaned her head against the window and watched the city pass. When they pulled up to the museum, she spotted Carla first, standing outside near the entrance, Lucas on her hip, both of them looking at something on Carla's phone. Then she saw Josh. He was standing a few feet away, hands in his pockets, watching Lucas with an expression Laura couldn't quite read. Not happy, not sad, just present. Like he was trying to memorize something he'd never get to see again. Laura paid the driver and got out. Lucas saw her immediately. "Mama!" He squirmed out of Carla's arms and ran toward her, nearly tripping over his own feet. Laura caught him, lifted him up, felt the solid weight of him against her chest. "Hey, baby, did you have fun?" "I saw a T-Rex. It was this big." He spread his arms as wide as they'd go. "Wow, that's pretty big. And it had big teeth, really big." "I bet." She set him down, looked at Carla. "Thanks for taking him. No problem. Kid's easy." Carla glanced at Josh, then back to Laura. "We ran into Josh inside. He was there looking at the dinosaurs too." Laura met Josh's eyes. He had the decency to look slightly embarrassed. "Coincidence, Count," he said. "Right." Lucas tugged on Laura's hand. "Mama, can we go see the bones again?" "We just saw them, buddy," Carla said. "But I want to show Mama." Laura looked at Josh. He was still standing there, clearly waiting for something, permission, dismissal. She wasn't sure which. "You want to come?" The words came out before she'd decided to say them. Josh's face shifted. Relief, maybe. "Yeah, if that's okay." "It's fine." It wasn't fine. But Lucas was already dragging her toward the entrance, and Carla was giving her a look that said, "You're on your own with this one," and Laura was too tired to fight it. The museum was mostly empty. Weekday afternoon, school still in session, just a handful of tourists and a field trip group in matching yellow shirts clustered around the geology exhibit. Lucas led them straight to the dinosaur hall like he'd memorized the route. His hand was sticky in Laura's, probably from the candy Carla had definitely given him despite Laura saying no sugar before dinner. "Look!" Lucas pointed at the T-Rex skeleton mounted in the center of the room, head tilted down like it was mid-hunt. "That's the one." "It's pretty cool," Laura said. Josh moved closer to the display, reading the information placard. Always reading, always processing. Says here it's a cast. The real bones are too fragile to display. It's still cool, Lucas insisted. It is. Josh crouched down to Lucas's level. You know what T-Rex ate? Other dinosaurs. That's right. And you know how we know? Lucas shook his head, eyes wide. Teeth marks on other dinosaur bones. Scientists can tell what bit what based on the shape. That's so cool. Lucas looked at the skeleton with renewed awe, then, without warning, grabbed Josh's hand. Come see the Triceratops. Laura watched Josh's face, watched him look down at his son's small hand in his, watched something crack open in his expression that he tried to hide but couldn't quite manage. Okay, Josh said quietly. Show me. They walked through the exhibit together, Lucas narrating everything he'd learned from Carla, making up facts when he didn't know the real ones, completely unbothered by the man holding his other hand. Laura followed a few steps behind, trying to figure out what she was feeling. Anger that Josh had shown up uninvited, relief that Lucas was happy, fear that this was all going to fall apart the second it started to feel normal. They ended up in the gift shop, because of course they did. Lucas saw the stuffed dinosaurs and lost his mind all over again. Mama, can I have one? Please. You have 1,000,000 stuffed animals at home. But I don't have a T-Rex. Actually, you have 2, remember? Lucas's face fell, then brightened immediately. But those are different T-Rexes. Josh, who'd been standing off to the side, trying not to be involved, said quietly, I can get it for him. Laura shot him a look. No. It's just a stuffed animal. I said no. She turned to Lucas. Baby, we're not getting a dinosaur today, but if you're really good the rest of the week, maybe we can come back. Lucas's bottom lip trembled. For a second, Laura thought he was going to cry. Then he took a breath, nodded, and said, Okay, Mama. Pride swelled in her chest. 2 years old, and already learning that he couldn't have everything he wanted. That wasn't something she'd taught him on purpose, just something that came from the life they had. Tight budget, single mom, no backup plan. Josh didn't say anything, but she saw him looking at the stuffed T-Rex, then at Lucas, then at her. Saw him doing that thing he did where he calculated outcomes and assessed risks and tried to find the optimal solution. Let's go, Laura said. Outside, the light had started to change. Still afternoon but leaning toward evening, shadows getting longer. Carla had texted that she was heading back to the hotel to rest her knees, which left Laura standing on the museum steps with Josh and Lucas, trying to figure out what happened next. I should get him back, Laura said. It's almost dinner time. Yeah. Josh looked at Lucas, who was already yawning. Can I walk with you? Just to the car. Laura hesitated, then nodded. They walked in silence for half a block. Lucas was getting tired, dragging his feet. Laura picked him up, settled him on her hip. Josh watched. He's getting big. Yeah, too big. In a few months I won't be able to carry him anymore. Then what? Then he walks or I get stronger. She smiled slightly. Probably the second one. They reached the rideshare pickup zone. Laura's phone showed the car was 3 minutes away. Laura. Yeah? Can we talk? Really talk? Her stomach dropped. About what? Everything. This. Us. Whatever this is turning into. Josh, please. Not here. Not now. But tonight. After Lucas is asleep. Laura shifted Lucas higher. He was already half out, head on her shoulder. Okay. Tonight. Laura got Lucas to sleep by 8. He'd crashed hard after the museum, didn't even make it through the first bedtime story. She stood in the doorway watching him for a long time, trying to organize the chaos in her head. Her phone buzzed. Josh, can we talk? I'm in the lobby. She should say no. Should tell him tomorrow. Should maintain boundaries. Instead, she texted Carla, who was in the adjoining room. Can you listen for Lucas? I need 20 minutes. Carla's response, go. I got him. The hotel lobby was empty except for the night desk clerk and a businessman on his laptop. Josh sat in one of the leather chairs near the window, still wearing the same clothes from the museum. He stood when he saw her. "Hey, hey." They stood there for a second, neither knowing quite what to do. "You want to walk?" Josh asked. "There's a park across the street." "Okay." The air outside was cold. Laura wrapped her arms around herself. Should have grabbed a jacket. Josh noticed, started to take off his, but she shook her head. "I'm fine." They walked in silence for half a block. The park was small, just a square of grass with a few benches and a fountain that wasn't running. Laura sat. Josh sat next to her, keeping distance. "You wanted to talk," she said. "Yeah." He was quiet for a moment. "I don't know how to do this." "Do what?" "Be angry at you and understand you at the same time." Laura looked at him. "You're angry?" "I don't know. Maybe. I think I should be. But mostly I'm just." He trailed off. "I missed 2 years." "I know." "No, I don't think you do." His voice was still quiet, but there was something sharp underneath. "I missed his first word, his first steps, the first time he laughed at something. 2 entire years of my son's life, and I didn't even know he existed." "Josh, and I know why you didn't tell me. I get it. I was emotionally unavailable. I would have tried to control everything. You needed space, and I gave it to you without a fight. I understand all of that intellectually." He looked at her. "But emotionally, Laura, I can't get those years back, ever, and that's not something I can just logic my way through." Laura felt her throat tighten. "I know. Do you? Because sometimes I look at you and I think you have no idea what you took from me." The words landed like a slap. Laura stood up. "What I took from you?" "Laura, no. You want to talk about what was taken? Let's talk about it." She was shaking now, not from cold. "You think you're the only one who lost something? I was 28, Josh. I had a career I loved, a life I was building, plans that didn't include being a single mom. And then I found out I was pregnant, and you know what my first thought was?" Josh didn't answer. "Terror. Pure terror. Because I knew that if I told you, you'd try to fix it. You'd want to get married, or move in together, or some other solution that looked good on paper, but ignored the fact that we barely knew each other. That we'd only been together because we were both running from our own shit. That's not fair, isn't it? Josh, you were still grieving your father. You couldn't even say his name without shutting down. And I was a mess too. We weren't in love. We were just there. For each other. Temporarily. You don't know what it could have been." "You're right. I don't. And you know why. Because you didn't fight for it. When I said I needed space, you said okay and walked away. 1 word, that's all I got." Josh flinched. "So yeah," Laura continued, "you missed 2 years. And that sucks. That's awful. I'm not saying it isn't. But I was there for every single one of those days. Every 2 a.m. feeding, every fever. Every time he cried and I didn't know why. Every moment I was terrified I was screwing him up because I had no idea what I was doing." She took a breath. "You lost 2 years, Josh. I lost the option of losing them. Because I didn't get to check out. I didn't get to not know. I had to show up every single day whether I wanted to or not." Silence. Josh's hands were shaking. He shoved them in his pockets. "You're right," he said quietly. "What?" "You're right, I didn't fight, I should have. When you said you needed space, I should have asked why, should have pushed back, should have done literally anything except just accept it." He looked at her. "And I can't fix that. I can't go back and be the person you needed 3 years ago, but I'm here now, and I know that doesn't erase what you went through alone. I know it doesn't give me back what I lost, but it's all I have." Laura sat back down, suddenly exhausted. "I'm not trying to punish you," she said quietly. "I know. And I'm not trying to keep him from you. I know that too." They sat in silence. The fountain wasn't running, but there was a slow drip somewhere, water hitting stone. "He has your eyes," Laura said finally. Josh looked at her. "When he concentrates on something, he gets this look. Same one you have. I see you in him every day." "Does that bother you?" "Sometimes. Sometimes it makes me miss you. Which is stupid because I barely knew you." "Maybe we could change that." Laura looked at him. "Maybe. 1 hour a week is a start. Yeah, it is. Josh stood, held out his hand. Laura took it. He pulled her up. They walked back to the hotel in silence, but it was different than before. Lighter. At the elevator, Josh stopped. Thank you for telling me the truth, even when it hurt. You asked for it. I did. He smiled slightly. I'm learning. The elevator arrived. Laura got in. Good night, Josh. Good night, Laura. The doors closed. Saturday morning. Laura woke up to Lucas standing next to her bed, his face 2 inches from hers. Mama, I'm hungry. She checked her phone. 6:45. Of course. Okay, baby, let's get you something. Carla was already awake, sitting by the window with coffee she'd made with the in-room machine. It smelled burnt, but she was drinking it anyway. Morning, Carla said. You look like hell. Thanks. I mean it. When's the last time you slept more than 4 hours? Laura couldn't remember. I'm fine. You're not, but okay. Carla took another sip of terrible coffee. What's the plan today? I don't know. We fly back tomorrow. Should probably let Lucas do something fun before we're stuck in an apartment for the next week. Josh asked if he could take Lucas to the park this morning. Laura's head snapped up. When did he ask that? Texted me at 6, said he didn't want to wake you. And you said? That I'd ask you when you woke up. Carla set down her cup. What do you want me to tell him? Laura looked at Lucas, who was trying to open a packet of crackers he'd found in her bag. His tongue was sticking out in concentration, both hands working at the plastic. Just him and Lucas. That's what he said, hour at Liberty Park. I can go with them if you want. Laura should say no, should insist on supervision, should maintain boundaries. Instead, she said, tell him yes, but I'm coming too. Liberty Park was 15 minutes away. They took an Uber because neither Laura nor Josh had a car in Salt Lake, and renting one for a day seemed excessive. Josh was waiting at the entrance, wearing jeans and a grey Henley that looked too casual to be casual, like he'd specifically bought park clothes for this occasion. Lucas ran ahead before Laura could stop him. Josh, you came! I said I would. Josh caught him easily, lifted him up for half a second before setting him back down. The gesture was still awkward, unpracticed, but trying. Where's the playground? Lucas asked. That way, I think. Josh looked at Laura. Thanks for letting me do this. Don't make me regret it. They walked through the park in strange formation. Lucas in front, running and stopping and running again. Laura a few steps behind him. Josh next to her, maintaining careful distance. The playground was already full. Weekend morning. Perfect weather. Every parent in the city had the same idea. Kids on swings, kids on slides. Kids screaming for no reason except that they were kids and screaming was fun. Lucas made a beeline for the climbing structure. Laura followed, positioning herself where she could catch him if he fell. Josh stood off to the side, hands in his pockets, watching. You can interact with him, Laura said. That's why you're here. I don't want to overstep. Josh, he's 2. He's not going to remember boundaries. Just be present. Josh nodded, walked closer. Lucas had made it to the top of the structure and was waving. Mama, look how high I am. I see you, baby. Be careful. Josh, look. Josh waved back. I see you. That's pretty high. I'm going to jump. Please don't. Laura and Josh said at the same time. Lucas laughed, climbed down the slide instead. They stayed at the playground for 40 minutes. Laura watched Josh try to figure out how to be a father to a kid who didn't know he was a father. Watched him push Lucas on the swings, too gentle at first, then harder when Lucas demanded higher. Watched him help Lucas across the monkey bars, even though Lucas's arms weren't long enough and kept slipping. At one point, Lucas fell, nothing serious, just tripped on the mulch and went down hard on his hands and knees. His face crumpled. Laura moved instinctively, but Josh got there first. He crouched down, checked Lucas's hands. You're okay. Just scraped a little. Lucas's lip trembled. It hurts. I know, but look, no blood, just dirt. We can wash it off. I don't want to wash it. Okay, then we'll leave it. But if it starts to hurt more, we gotta clean it. Deal? Lucas considered this. Deal. Josh helped him stand, brushed the mulch off his knees. Laura stood a few feet away, feeling something complicated happening in her chest. They got ice cream after. Laura's suggestion, mostly because Lucas was starting to get cranky, and ice cream solved most problems when you were two. The shop was small, family-owned, the kind of place that had been there for decades and refused to change. They sat outside at a metal table that wobbled, Lucas between them with chocolate ice cream melting faster than he could eat it. "You're gonna wear that home," Laura said, wiping his face with a napkin. "I don't care." Lucas took another massive bite. Josh had gotten vanilla. He ate it slowly, methodically, like even ice cream required a system. "You always eat like that?" Laura asked. "Like what?" "Like it's gonna disappear if you don't pace yourself." Josh looked at his cone. "Didn't realize I was doing it." "You do everything like that." "Measured, controlled. Is that a bad thing?" "No, just exhausting." He didn't argue, just took another careful bite. Lucas's ice cream dripped onto the table. Laura caught it with a napkin before it could hit his shirt. Josh watched the whole exchange like he was studying for a test. "You don't have to memorize this," Laura said quietly. "I'm not." "You are. You're trying to figure out the formula. How to be good at this, but there isn't one, Josh. You just do it. You mess up. You try again. And if I mess up too much, then you mess up too much." She looked at him. "But you're here. That's more than nothing." Lucas finished his ice cream, announced he was sticky, and demanded to be cleaned. Laura took him to the bathroom inside the shop. When they came back out, Josh had thrown away all their trash and was standing by the table looking at his phone. "Work?" Laura asked. "Yeah, nothing urgent. You can take it if you need to." "I don't." They walked back through the park slower than they'd come. Lucas was tired now, dragging his feet, asking to be carried every 30 seconds. Laura kept telling him no, he could walk, but eventually gave in and picked him up. Josh offered to take him. Laura hesitated, then shifted Lucas over. Her son went easily, wrapped his arms around Josh's neck, and rested his head on his shoulder like he'd done it 1,000 times. Laura watched Josh's face, watched him adjust his grip, settle Lucas's weight, keep walking like it was the most natural thing in the world. "You're good at this," she said. "I'm not." "You are. You're trying. That's most of it." They reached the park entrance. The Uber was already there, the driver scrolling through his phone. Josh handed Lucas back to Laura. Their hands touched briefly. Neither of them acknowledged it. "Tomorrow you fly back," Josh said. "Yeah. And then I'll see you in San Francisco. 1 hour, once a week. I'll be there." Laura got in the car, buckled Lucas in. He was already half asleep. Through the window, she saw Josh standing on the sidewalk, watching them leave. She didn't wave. That night, after Lucas was asleep and Carla had gone to bed early with a book, Laura sat on the hotel balcony with a glass of wine she'd ordered from room service. The city spread out below her, lights coming on as the sun set behind the mountains. Her phone buzzed. "Josh, thank you for today," she typed. "He had fun. So did I." Laura stared at that message for a long time. Then, "This doesn't fix anything. I know. And it might not work. I know that too." She took a sip of wine. "It was better than it should be for hotel room service, but you're still gonna try." "Yeah." Laura set her phone down, watched the sky turn from blue to pink to purple. Somewhere in the city, Josh was probably in his hotel room doing the same thing, watching the same sunset, thinking about the same kid. She picked up her phone again. "See you next Saturday. Golden Gate Park, 2 o'clock. His response came immediately. "I'll be there." Laura finished her wine, went back inside, checked on Lucas one more time even though she'd checked 10 minutes ago. He was fine, sleeping hard, mouth open, one arm thrown over his head. She sat on the edge of the bed, brushed his hair back. He didn't stir. "Your dad's gonna show up next Saturday," she whispered. "And the Saturday after that, and the one after that. And I don't know if that's good or bad or somewhere in between, but I guess we're gonna find out." Lucas sighed in his sleep. Laura stood, turned off the lamp, got into her own bed. Sleep didn't come easy, but it came. Sunday morning was chaos, packing, checkout, getting Lucas fed and dressed and to the airport with enough time for security. Carla managed most of it while Laura triple-checked they hadn't forgotten anything. The flight back to San Francisco was uneventful. Lucas watched a movie on her phone. Carla did a crossword puzzle. Laura stared out the window and tried not to think about what came next. When they landed, the fog was rolling in like it always did. That specific Bay Area gray that made everything feel muted and close. Laura's apartment smelled stale when she unlocked the door. Mail piled up inside. Plants that needed watering. The comfortable disaster of a life put on pause. Lucas ran to his room to check that all his toys were still there. Carla set her bag down with a groan. "I'm getting too old for this." "You loved it." "I did. Doesn't mean my knees didn't hate me the entire time." Laura hugged her, tight. "Thank you. For everything." "That's what family does." Carla pulled back. "Now, you gonna be okay with all this Josh business?" "I don't know." "Honest answer, I appreciate that." Carla grabbed her bag. "Call me if you need me, or if you just need someone to tell you you're not crazy." "I will." After Carla left, Laura unpacked, put Lucas's dirty clothes in the hamper, started a load of laundry, checked her work email, 3 new assignments for the week, all local, normal life, regular routine. Except now, every Saturday at 2, Josh Franklin would be in Golden Gate Park waiting for them. Laura's phone buzzed. A text from Josh. "Safe flight?" "Yeah, we're home." "Good." Then, "See you Saturday." Laura looked at that message. Typed and deleted 3 different responses before settling on. "See you Saturday." She put her phone in her pocket, went to Lucas's room. He was on the floor arranging his toy cars in a line. "Mama, when's Josh coming back?" Her heart did something painful. "Next Saturday. We're going to see him at the park." "Can I bring my dinosaur?" "Which one?" "The T-Rex, the new one." Laura paused. "Baby, we didn't get a new T-Rex." Lucas looked up at her, confused, then ran to his backpack, pulled out a stuffed T-Rex she'd never seen before. "Josh gave it to me when you were in the bathroom. He said don't tell you, but I forgot." Laura took the dinosaur, looked at it. The tag was still attached. From the museum gift shop. She should be angry, should call Josh and tell him he'd already broken the rules. Instead, she just stood there, holding the stuffed T-Rex, watching her son go back to playing. "It's okay, Mama." Laura set the dinosaur down next to him. "Yeah, baby, it's okay." Later, after Lucas was in bed, Laura sent Josh a text. He told me about the T-Rex. 3 minutes passed. Then, "I'm sorry, I should have asked. Yes, you should have. It won't happen again." Laura believed him, which was either progress or stupidity. She wasn't sure which. "Saturday, 2 o'clock. Don't be late. I won't." Laura set her phone on the nightstand, turned off the light. Outside, the fog pressed against the windows. Inside, the apartment settled into silence. Her alarm was set for 6 a.m. Life continued. 18 months later. Laura stood in the doorway of Lucas's room, watching Josh help their son build a tower out of blocks that was destined to fall. It was Saturday afternoon, the 4th Saturday of the month, which meant Josh stayed for dinner instead of just the park. They'd never officially agreed to it. Just sort of happened. One week, Josh had shown up with groceries. I was at the store anyway. And Laura had been too tired to argue. The next week, he'd stayed to help with bath time because Lucas had paint in his hair from daycare, and it took 2 people to wrangle a 3-year-old into the tub. The week after that, he'd just stayed. Now it was routine. Lucas placed another block. The tower swayed. "Careful," Josh said. "It's getting tall." "I know, that's the point." "But if you go too fast..." The tower collapsed. Blocks scattered across the floor. Lucas laughed like it was the best thing that had ever happened. "Again," he demanded. Josh looked at Laura in the doorway. She smiled. He smiled back. They'd gotten good at this. The shared looks, the unspoken communication, the strange domestic rhythm they'd fallen into without ever discussing what it meant. Laura walked to the kitchen, started pulling out ingredients for dinner. Pasta because Lucas would actually eat it. Salad because she was trying to be an adult who ate vegetables. Garlic bread because Josh had mentioned once that he liked it, and she'd filed that information away without meaning to. Her phone buzzed. "Carla, how's the not-boyfriend doing?" Laura typed back. "He's not my boyfriend." "Sure, and I'm not 73 with bad knees. We're co-parenting. You're cooking him dinner. I cook Lucas dinner. Josh just happens to be here. Keep telling yourself that, honey. Laura put her phone away, started boiling water. Behind her, she heard Josh and Lucas in the hallway. Lucas was explaining something about dinosaurs. His current obsession hadn't faded, had only intensified. Josh was asking questions, genuinely interested, not just humoring him. They appeared in the kitchen. Lucas climbed onto his chair at the table. Josh leaned against the counter, maintaining that careful distance he always kept, unless invited closer. "Need help?" he asked. "You can cut the bread." He moved next to her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, different from what he used to wear, lighter, less like he was trying to prove something. His sleeve brushed her arm as he reached for the knife. Neither of them moved away. Lucas was coloring at the table, tongue sticking out in concentration. The same expression Josh made when he was focused. Laura had started noticing things like that. The similarities. The way Lucas tilted his head when he was thinking. The way he got quiet when he was overwhelmed. The stubborn set to his jaw when he'd made up his mind about something. All Josh. "What?" Josh asked, catching her staring. "Nothing. Just, he looks like you. He has your eyes. He has your everything else." Josh looked at Lucas. Something soft crossed his face. "Is that a bad thing?" "No, just strange, seeing you in him." They finished making dinner in comfortable silence. Laura drained the pasta. Josh buttered the bread. Lucas narrated his coloring page, a T-Rex fighting a Stegosaurus, both of them apparently friends despite the fight. They ate at the small table in Laura's kitchen, the one that barely fit 3 people. Lucas talked non-stop. Josh listened like every word mattered. Laura watched both of them and tried to remember when this had started feeling normal. After dinner, Lucas asked Josh to read him a bedtime story. Josh looked at Laura. "If that's okay," he said. It was always, if that's okay. Even now. Even after 18 months of Saturdays and emergency phone calls when Lucas was sick, and Josh showing up at the hospital when Laura had to work late. Still asking permission. "It's okay," she said. She cleaned up the kitchen while Josh and Lucas went through the bedtime routine. Teeth brushing, pajamas. 3 stories instead of 1 because Lucas was a negotiator. She could hear Josh's voice through the wall, making sound effects for the dinosaurs, making Lucas laugh. 20 minutes later, Josh emerged. "He's out." That was fast. He was tired, fell asleep during the 2nd story. Laura dried her hands on the dish towel. Josh stood in the middle of her small living room, looking like he wasn't sure what came next. This was the part where he usually left. Said goodnight. Drove back to his apartment in Pacific Heights that was too big and too empty, and too much like the life he used to have before he knew he had a son. But tonight, he didn't move toward the door. "Laura." "Yeah." "Can we talk?" Her stomach dropped. Those words never meant anything good. "About what?" "This." He gestured vaguely. "Us. Whatever this is. We're co-parenting. Is that all we're doing?" Laura set down the dish towel. "What do you want me to say, Josh?" "I want you to tell me if I'm the only one feeling like this is more than just showing up for Lucas." The apartment was too quiet. She could hear the refrigerator humming, the upstairs neighbor walking around, her own heartbeat. "I don't know what this is," she said finally. "That's not an answer. It's the only one I have." Josh took a step closer, then another. He stopped a foot away, close enough that she had to look up to meet his eyes. "I think about you," he said quietly. "Not just as Lucas's mom, as you. I think about the way you bite your lip when you're concentrating. The way you always smell like lavender. The way you're patient with him even when you're exhausted. I think about the last time I kissed you and how that was 3 years ago, and how I don't remember it clearly because I wasn't paying attention, and I wish I had been." Laura's breath caught. "And I know," Josh continued, "that I don't get to just walk back into your life and expect anything. I know I missed 2 years. I know I have to earn this, but Laura, I need to know if I'm earning it for something or if I'm just here." She should tell him it was too complicated, that they'd tried this once and it hadn't worked, that adding romance to co-parenting was asking for disaster. Instead, she said, "You're not just here. Josh's expression shifted. Hope, maybe. Fear. Both. I don't know what that means for us, Laura continued. I don't know if this works, if we work. But you're not just here for Lucas. Not anymore. Then let me try, really try. Not just Saturdays. Not just dinner once a month. Let me take you out. Let me see if we can be something more than two people who share a kid. Josh? Please. There it was again. That word. Laura looked at him. At the man who'd shown up every single Saturday for 18 months without fail, who'd learned how to braid hair from YouTube because Lucas wanted fancy hair like Elsa, who'd rearranged his entire schedule around a 3-year-old's needs without complaint, who'd somehow become necessary without her noticing when it happened. One date, she said. One date. And if it's weird, then it's weird and we figure it out. We're good at figuring things out. She almost smiled. Are we? We made this work. He gestured around her apartment. Against pretty much every odd. I think we can handle dinner and a movie. Dinner and a movie, really? I don't know what people do on dates. It's been a while. Now she did smile. Yeah, me too. Josh reached out, slowly, giving her time to pull away. His hand found hers, their fingers laced together. Wednesday, he asked. I have a shift until 7. Thursday. Okay. They stood there for a moment, holding hands in her living room like teenagers who didn't know what came next. Then Josh leaned down, kissed her forehead, pulled back. I should go. Let you sleep. Yeah. He didn't let go of her hand immediately. Neither did she. Finally, he stepped back, moved toward the door, stopped with his hand on the handle. Laura? Yeah? Thank you for letting me try. She nodded, didn't trust her voice. He left. Laura stood in her living room for a long time after the door closed. Then she checked on Lucas one more time. He was sprawled across his bed, the stuffed T-Rex from the museum tucked under his arm. She went to her room, got ready for bed, set her alarm for 6 a.m. Before turning off the light, she opened her photos. Found the picture she'd taken today at the park. Josh pushing Lucas on the swings, both of them laughing at something, the afternoon sun catching them just right. She'd taken it without thinking. Muscle memory. The instinct to preserve a moment because it mattered. Laura saved it to her favorites. Then she turned off the light and closed her eyes. Outside, the city settled into its nighttime rhythm. Inside, everything was quiet. Life wasn't perfect, but it was hers. Theirs. And for the first time in 3 years, she wasn't afraid of what came next. Sometimes the hardest thing isn't starting over. It's letting someone in after you've learned to survive alone. Laura built a life for herself and Lucas without Josh, not because she didn't need him, but because she needed to prove she could. And Josh showed up week after week, not because it was easy, but because some things are worth the effort. Real love isn't about grand gestures or perfect timing. It's about showing up on Saturdays. It's about learning to braid hair and reading the same dinosaur book 47 times. It's about two people who got it wrong the first time choosing to try again, not because they have to, but because they want to. Co-parenting became something more the moment they stopped keeping score. What matters more in a relationship? Perfect timing or consistent effort? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your participation means a lot to the channel. Please share your perspective. Here's the thing about this story. It's not about a billionaire. It's not even really about the kid. It's about two people who got it wrong the first time and had to decide if trying again was worth the risk. If you've ever had to make that choice, you know how hard it is. Like if you felt this, subscribe if you want more. Your support keeps these stories coming. Thanks for watching.